everyone, to another episode of Ed and Energetics. And today I have my friend Neyda here, Honda, and she is an amazing healer, uh, activator, and channel of the collective. And welcome, Neyda. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm so excited to be with you and share some experiences or whatever you want to talk about on this podcast with you.
Well, today I wanted to talk about uh, telling your story about how you, I like to call rediscovered your gifts. What was the process? Where were you? When did you start realizing that you had these abilities and gifts, and to get you to the point where you are today?
All right. So I'm going to start off, and thank you for asking. Uh, I want to start off when I was really young. I'm sure you remember back in the day, we used to watch Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers in 25th Century, and Star Trek. What else was out there? Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers. Anywho, so I remember telling my dad when I was about 7 or 8. I kept telling him, I'm like, Dad, I do not belong here. I'm supposed to be from the future. I think I'm from the future. And of course, my dad is like, okay, whatever. I always felt out of place.
Okay.
I didn't understand that.
Mm.
Prior to that, my biological mom passed when I was 4 or 5 years old. And from what my sister and my cousin would tell me is we would be in a room having a conversation, and then I would just immediately stop and turn and look like at the wall, and I would just start having a full-blown conversation in front of them. They didn't see anything,
Right.
but they knew I was talking to my mother because I was referring to whatever I was seeing as my mother. So that's what I remember very clearly when I was a child. But then, then it got to a point where I was basically surviving, you know, one thing after another. So nothing came about from
Mm.
that because I was too busy surviving the circumstances that I was living. It wasn't, now that I look back in hindsight, it wasn't anything bad, but for a child, it's still very traumatic.
Yeah.
Um, so then fast forward all the way through November, December of 2019. I was at work. This is when we all had to work inside the office still, pre-COVID. COVID hit March of 2020, so this is the end of 2019. I
Mhm.
was listening to a podcast while I was working, and I stumbled upon this podcast that literally just changed my everything at that moment. I could not unhear it, unsee it, and then I started binge watching the podcast. It was Impact Theory is still on right now. Was what I had watched, and from that point on, I just devoted myself to listening to the podcasts, to the presenters, and buying their books, and just doing everything that they said. I don't know why. I don't know why I was so intrigued. It was all about. I was always because I was watching, all these sci-fi shows. I think I was intrigued by the qua- the the neuroscience and the quantum mechanics that was coming out because it resonated so much with me, and it wasn't a movie, it was real life, that I just started going, balls to the wall, doing everything. So journaling, meditations once, twice, not even knowing what was happening. I would start to see colors and I didn't know what that meant.
Mm.
Then I started to feel things in certain places of the house. And I knew that my daughter's bedroom was really safe in there. It just felt really safe in there. I knew there were angels there and I knew there were guides there, but I couldn't pinpoint because that was the very beginning of everything. COVID hit, and then life took another turn because now we had to stay home.
Yeah.
And then I really focused because I didn't have to get ready to commute. I didn't have to run and take the kids somewhere, then run and pick them up and, do all the cooking. Everything was more chill.
Yeah.
So I was able to spend even more time reading and doing my meditations. And I even incorporated yoga, like, so I started doing all sorts of things. Um, and then things started to happen. Like, I'll give you an example. And of course, throughout the course of life, coinkydings happen.
Mm,
You see things, but you kind of always dismiss it, like, whatever. I was I was on Facebook, and I a distant friend of mine that lives in North Carolina posted that his mother had passed. And so I immediately sent him a message, expressing my condolences. I
uh-huh.
was by myself, the kids were asleep, and my husband at the time was somewhere else. And so I started texting him my condolences, and he responded back. And then he said, all of a sudden, I just started crying, and I had no idea why. And I'm telling him, I'm sitting here crying as if I know what's going on, but all I'm hearing is, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I felt like I had no other choice. And it was just really this deep sadness. Um, it was overwhelming for me. I didn't know what to expect. And I kept on apologizing to him. And that's when he told me my mom committed suicide and I found her. At that point, that was my wake up call. Like, I just opened up something
Right.
big. And then from that point on, it's history. I've just been, every single day I stop watching TV unless I watch a movie with the kids. Um, my scrolling on social media, unless I'm posting, it's like 20, 30 minutes. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I go, a little bit crazy, but I took out all the distractions. I changed my life completely where I ended up getting a divorce because I was outgrowing my circumstance. I
Mm.
didn't understand it at the time, but I outgrew. I learned the lesson and I outgrew it, and now I'm moving forward. So that's how my life has changed completely, where it started and how it just continues to develop to this day.
So that voice that you heard, that I'm sorry, that was the mother of your friend that was coming through?
Yeah, I even heard her voice. I heard her voice, and I didn't see her. I didn't know the circumstances. He just said that his mom just passed. I had no idea that she had committed suicide, and it was recent. So, yeah, that was her message to him, was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. So your whole life changed
A
and
little bit.
a little bit. And after you started not only hearing voices, what else developed?
So I think the first part was the mediumship developed, um, and as I started working remotely, and I would just give random messages to people. I mean, at first I would test them out, like, "Hey, like, can I tell you something?"
Yeah.
And it was a way for me to practice. Then I started then I started finding more things in my algorithms. I saw Esther Hicks,
Hmm.
Abraham Hicks, Bashar, Cryon, many things. And so I said, you know what? I think it would be cool if I could channel. Next thing I know, I'm channeling. I'm channeling the Galactic Federation. I was like, okay, this is cool. Uh, then more psychic abilities came along. So, um, and when the psychic abilities came along, I said, okay, well, now that I'm developing psychic abilities, I want to be able to get people's names, if
Mm.
I can. And then I started developing pulling people's names, so that people can resonate with the mediumship. And then I started doing, and this is how you and I met. I started doing tarot cards as a way of developing and learning more, which really for me helped me gain the confidence in
Mhm.
speaking, just because getting people's validations and people starting to cry and getting their messages and all that stuff, like, it made me feel good because I'm like, okay, I'm not going crazy, you know, this is for real.
Mhm.
And I really believe in this stuff because I am doing this stuff. Fast forward, I'm learning again. I'm reading books. I'm learning more from the John Monroe Institute, or is it John Monroe? Monroe. I'm sorry, Monroe Institute. I just butchered that. It's the Monroe Institute, the Gateway Experience, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and other things like that. And all of a sudden, I realized that I can manipulate DNA.
Mm. Okay.
And I started doing that on you guys at
Yes,
the
you
psychic
did.
events. I would be going around because you can never find me in my seat. I would be walking around and I'd be like, "Hey, can I try something with you? Are you open to it?" And of course, everyone says yes.
Yes.
So, and that's how I started developing I guess my ascension or starseed or light code activation process.
Okay. And so between where you are right now and where you started, did you, I know you said you started doing shows and doing the tarot card readings. Uh, did you find that easy or did you feel hesitant about, what I like to come say is come out of the woo-woo closet?
I'm still having a little bit of reservation
Okay.
coming out of the woo woo closet. I really do. I don't know why. I know that's something. I know it's a fear of something, but I do. If I were to just say that I'm a psychic medium,
Mm,
I think it'd be easier.
okay.
But if I go out to people and I say, "Yeah, so I can like manipulate DNA," they'll be like, "Okay, right, because only in science labs did that happen, you know?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, this is on an energetic. I work with the junk DNA. The 90% that scientists are now saying there's actually more to it."
Mhm.
Um, so I still am working on that towards that reservation. So the people that I work with are in close proximity. It's like my woo-woo friends, or if I work an event, I no longer do the tarot readings or the psychic mediumship because when I do that type of work, that automatically comes.
Right.
So I don't do tarot anymore, and I don't do mediumship unless I'm talking to someone and it just comes out, or I'm,
Mhm.
I'm in conversation and they'll ask me a question and I'm like, okay, let me see. So, but other than that, I just stick to like code activation and channeling. I love channeling. That's a lot of fun.
Now, when you channel, um, how long does it take? Is there a long process for you to get into a meditative state, or how do you connect?
Usually it's just breath work.
Okay.
Um, I think now it's much better. Obviously, before I had to get through my nerves.
Mm,
But when I do it, it's just breath work, just breathing in and breathing out. And now I can fairly quickly connect. And so what I feel is I feel kind of like lightheaded
okay.
and I get hot, like I feel hot, but my body is freezing. So
Mm,
you'll see me breaking out in a sweat, but my hands are like frozen. And so the connection is quick, the body temperature changes, and that's how I realized that, okay, I'm in a good theta gamma state where I can make this connection. Um, by myself is very easy when it's with a group of people. If it's a really good group of people where everybody's, energy is jamming, it's like enhanced. And when
mhm,
there's a group of people that are kind of just there, not really just to watch or whatever, it might take me a little bit longer, but I still connect.
And how do you know who's coming through when you're channeling?
So before, when I first started, they named themselves Ishtar, which is very interesting because Ishtar is known as a goddess,
Okay.
an Egyptian goddess. But this one came in as a man. And he specifically, well, I'm not going to say a man because it's not really a man, it's a male energy.
Right.
And he told me that he is part of the Galactic Federation and he's the overseer. So he comes down to the earth, he takes notes, whatever's happening, and then takes it back to the council.
Mm,
Now I don't necessarily channel Ishtar anymore. What it comes down to is a collective. It's like all sorts of voices talking as one in harmony.
okay.
So I know that it's the Galactic Federation as a collective, not just one entity. I needed that initially so I can label it and I can
Right.
learn how to work with it. But now I'm okay because these entities, they're only have the figures based on my imagination, based on how I envision them to be and how they appear to me to make me feel better that I can recognize them. But now I don't know. I no longer need that.
Okay. So basically, when you're channeling, you're just channeling the collective consciousness.
Collective consciousness of the Galactic Federation.
Right.
So it's not the collective consciousness of like us here on the planet, or in your case like the angelic realm. No, this is more cosmic, because remember I resonated with the Battlestar Galactica, so you have the Federation for, the Starship Enterprise, and then you have Star Wars, the Federation, right? So
Mhm.
that's what I tune into. And I know that sounds weird, that there's a, does that really exist, a federation? Yeah, it does.
Well, whether you believe it or not, it does exist. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that we would be the only, what is it called, intelligent beings in the whole entire universe. So yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely a trip. But at the same time, like when I I when I first understood what I was whom I was channeling, it really for me felt like a relief, because it just validated what I was telling my dad when I was younger. And I kind of got to know my past life, that I did come from, outer space, and
Yeah.
this is an incarnation. So, and this is why when I was younger too, I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to be in the Air Force. But that time, you had to have perfect vision, which I didn't at that time. That was before laser eye surgery came out. And then I wanted to go into the LAPD, and I never did. So I had this need to be in the military.
Uh-huh.
So this is why it makes sense that I'm now connected with the Galactic Federation, because it runs in my past life, in my DNA, my lineage. So it makes sense that why I would connect with that group.
Yeah, it does. And it's funny because I was interviewing Angelica, and she was telling me a similar story that when she was young, she kept looking up at the stars going, "Did I get left behind?" She had that feeling of like she didn't actually belong here. So now that you say that you have a similar experience, I'm like, oh, okay. So that's probably what she's tuning in is to, a past life from before she was here. So it's like, oh, interesting.
And you know what's interesting too? When I was starting to channel, I had this entity come in, and he asked me, again, it was a he. I don't think I've had female entities, I don't think. So he came in, he's like, "Are you ready to hear the truth?"
Mm.
I'm just in my bed meditating. I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Like I ain't got nowhere to go. Let's hear it. And he said that I came from the Pleiades star system, and he gave me such detail. Um, it was such detail that I asked him, "Can you please hold on so I can get my laptop and type it out?" And he
Okay.
said yes. So I came back and I started typing it out. He told me about how the Pleiades came to the planet, and how we know them as uh, uh, they settled in Mexico. Some of them settled in Mexico, and Mayan civilization and all these things. It was probably like a 45 minute to an hour channeling session. I mean, it just felt forever. And I know it wasn't like 30 minutes. I know it was longer. I could have written a book, like an ebook off of that channel session. So it ended, and I thanked it, and I'm like, "Oh, what am I supposed to do with
To
this
do with this.
information?"
Exactly.
I'm like, I've never heard of Pleiades. I'm like, I don't even know how to spell it. So immediately what I did was I went straight to YouTube, and I spelled out Pleiades the best that I could. And I found some whatever videos on the Pleiadians. And then I just kept scrolling until I found a person that looked normal to me. That
Okay.
didn't have, I just like I wanted to look to somebody that looked like me, and not someone
Exactly.
that made it look like a hippie or whatever. I was like, I just need something like regular.
Yeah.
And I clicked on his channel, and I kid you not, everything he said to me was verbatim. Like
Oh.
almost the exact same words in the history that I had typed down on that channeling session.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so now I get it. We're all part of this some sort of star system because there's different star systems. There's
Yeah.
Sirian, there's Lemurian, part of the Seven
Period.
Sisters,
Yes.
belt, Orion belt,
Yes.
the Centurions and all stuff. So I was like, okay, well, here's a start. you know? And then I started going into that rabbit hole to figure out Pleiadians and Arcturians and all
Mhm.
that stuff.
And how long ago was this download? A couple of years ago?
Yeah, yeah. This was back in I want to say 2022.
Okay.
Uh yeah, 2022 is probably around the summer of 2022 when once I changed my circumstances at in my life,
Mhm.
when I completely detached and changed my circumstances, everything just happened like oof. Like it's been waiting for me
Okay.
to make this transition in my life to get all this information. Um I never asked for it because I didn't know about it.
Right.
It was just waiting for that moment when I was in complete silence. And they just, since then, it's been like nonstop downloads. Um, Now I can control it. Back then, it was just like every
Just
single
okay.
day, just nonstop. And I just have to sit here and say, okay, well, and then you go through all these, energetic calibrations in the body.
Mm.
And you don't know you're going through that. You don't know why you're going through that. So, and I have never asked questions, so I just kind of rolled with it, not realizing that I was getting calibrated energetically. That was part of one of my spiritual awakenings was when I made that transition and I had these downloads. Um, and ever since then, like I feel like I've been doing a spiritual awakening since then, but no, I got another spiritual awakening that I just got thrown into recently. But it's a never ending growth process, but because I choose to not end it because I enjoy it so much.
And it's kind of like your what is it called? You're leveling up.
Yeah,
Like you get at a you get to a certain place and you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next step. And then you level up to the next level.
absolutely. No, that's how I see it too. It's like a video game. If you're playing Mario, you
Yeah.
keep on leveling up. And I like that process because I never know what other abilities I'm gonna get. Like just when we met just recently, all of a sudden I started doing something completely different that I've never done before. You did something different that you've never done before. And it just those are cool things that happen when you're on this process, knowing it just it just opens up your minds like, man, it's life, the world isn't what we think it is. Life as we know it is not what we think what we live it is actually different, and we need to, for me, I want to harness that. I want to harness that magic. I want to harness those abilities.
And what do you want to, how do you want to bring those abilities and those gifts into the world?
Great question. So I started a podcast a while back, and what I do was, as I was meeting interesting people at these psychic events, and going through my process, and then just really what got me motivated was because the people that were coming to these psychic events, you have your curiosity people, your curious people, you have your people that are addicted to psychics. That was me. I love psychics. And then you have people that just are completely lost
Mhm.
in their life at that moment, and they're going to these places that they would never normally go to see if they can at least find any answers that they're going through. So in this process, I met a lot of people that felt broken.
Mhm.
Um, and many of them were not, if not, I don't think any of them were going to see a therapist for it. And then I started thinking, can a therapist help them? Because these are emotions. And most therapists will ask, well, what was your earliest memory? Like, if you were to ask what my earliest memory was, I would say what I just told you, that I
Right.
I belong in the universe. I belong, in the galaxy fighting.
Uh-huh.
Um, so then I made a promise that I would provide people with different alternative resources that they can reach out to so they can help themselves in the process.
Mm,
So in my podcast, I have um, psychics. I have people that do sweat lodges, which are shamanic things, where you sweat it out and you really release a lot of trauma. Um, People with mushroom experiences, DMT experiences. So just different, because as I've realized, there are so many things out there, and people are now starting to come out and share their gifts, even
mhm,
sound baths. Um, and I feel that that's something good that others should look into to help them out. So that's part of my podcast. I do that. And then another section of my podcast, I do an Instagram live twice a week where I work with a life coach, and we just talk about, problems, whether you're in toxic relationships or you're going through a spiritual awakening, or, if you're a perfectionist, and that's kind of like messing up when you're with your life. So we talk about everything. Then on the other side of it, I'm starting to document my new journey in the hopes that it resonates with somebody, and to help them to say, hey, I'm going through this as well. And
mhm,
this is my view based on all these teachings that I've spent these years working on. Now it's time to put it to work,
mhm.
like really put it to work. So, all that to say that my service to others is in providing people with information to help them. Um, I no longer work psychic events. Um, I'll go to them because, again, I love psychics and I love to meet the people. I like to meet the next person for my podcast. And I like to see what's out there and experiment with their gifts. But otherwise, I'm more informational based, because I wish that I had met other people like me, not just in theory, not just in reading the books, not just in watching the podcasts and stuff like that, but meeting people like me, to help understand more of what I was going through.
And what did you say? Well, would you agree or disagree with me when I think about you just talked about how you meet a lot of people who are feeling broken at these events. Uh, it isn't so much that they're broken, it's just that they're awakening. It's that process of you've hit rock bottom, so where else there's nowhere else to go but up.
That's exactly right. And I said broken specifically because when you don't know
Right.
that it's an awakening, that's
Mhm.
how you feel and that's how you identify with it.
Exactly. I think we
It
all, especially because I mean, in order, especially me, in order to get where I am, I had to hit that broken part and then realize, wait, there's more.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, there's some people that are already intuitive from
Hmm.
the get-go, and they understood that intuition. Either they learned it as they grew up, or they had good family support system or friends, whatever their environment was, or maybe they had the inner knowing. Depending on where you are in this incarnation in your journey, because there's different levels. There's
Right.
people that have always been more awake to themselves than others, right? So for the person that already had that feeling and already learned from experience that, no, even though something bad happens, it's always ends up okay in the end.
Mhm.
They're gonna be okay. But and they understand, even though they don't have a label for it, like a spiritual awakening, in the inside they know they'll be okay. But for the rest of us that have been learning how to survive, and we're just living on edge all the time, where we have stress, anxiety, we're so busy in our own thoughts and trying to make the next paycheck and trying to, provide, that we don't hear ourselves. We don't hear our intuition. So we don't understand that it's there. We don't know that it's there because
Mhm.
we just haven't opened up the awareness to it.
Correct. So that's what you're hoping to help people then uh
Yeah.
to.
It's like I want to do the shortcut, you know? So, I mean, if you can do, these alternative resources in conjunction with your therapy, oh,
Mhm.
you're already, back then therapy was taboo. Like if you told somebody that your child was going to therapy, they're like, "Oh man, your kid is messed up," or "You must be really messed up if you're going to therapy," right? Now it's different. Now people just send people to therapy just because they have the means to it. So
Yeah.
if you can combine that modality with all these other alternative modalities, oh my gosh, like you have such it's a game changer and you have such an advantage to what most people don't have.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. So you have your podcast going. Anything else you're working on apart from your podcast?
Um, no, I think what I really need to focus is we were talking about is that little fear factor.
Mm.
That's posting more on social media, not just the podcasting, but more of myself. And that's going to be working. Um, it's for me to heal.
Okay.
And in the process, others can jump on that bandwagon to try and heal themselves, to step out of their comfort zone.
Mhm. So you're not working one-on-one with anyone, or you're not taking
Not at the moment, not
all
at the
right.
moment. But I won't say no to people. Let's just say that.
So
I
if
won't
people
say no.
wanted to contact you and have a session with you or meet with you, you'd be open to that.
Yeah, I'll be open to that. And here's the reason why I'm more particular. Um, in order for me to do the light code activation,
Hmm.
I've realized that the people that most benefit are those people that are already doing the work, either for themselves or already being of service to others. So I'm just enhancing their abilities at this point or enhancing their healing process. So what happens with the DNA activation is, if you have suppressed memories and something happened but you can't remember, well, I will open up that portion of your memory so you can fully process it, and heal from it. Or if people want to enhance their psychic abilities or whatever, what I'll do is I'll open up that part of the junk DNA
Hmm.
to allow for more flow of intuition. And sometimes other things come out of it. And the reason why I'm particular with the group of people that I work is because they believe.
Yeah.
They believe and they already have the imagination waiting for it and they already have the intention. Whereas if I'm working from somebody, that just comes in off the street, it's not going to have the same effect.
No, because there's a
So,
lot of layers they still have to go through.
yeah, they still have a lot to go through. And
Mm.
so that's where I'm at right now because I really enjoy what I do and I feel that what I do is very impactful and powerful. So I wanted to really make it work for the other person and if they're willing to want it and have the intention, then they're going to benefit from it as well.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much for activating my light language. I get it. Yes.
Yeah.
It's true. So if anybody wants to contact you, that's a light worker or star seed or already on their journey, where can they reach out to you?
So I have everything, luckily, because I got channeled the name from my I guess business or whatever is at Guided Counsel. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, but those platforms are pretty dry right now. But don't worry, I'll get there. But mostly on my YouTube at Guided Counsel and my website www.guidedcounsel.com. So it's guided and then Counsel. So I'm counseling you
Oh,
because
okay.
you know it's we're working together
Mhm.
for consultation or counseling or whatever is really why that came about.
Wonderful. All right. Are there are there any last words, or what would you like to let our audience know before we end?
Well, let me see if I can tap into the Federation real quick and see what they have to say. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to join on this podcast and allowing us to partake in your endeavors. For we are here with you as we speak. We know this is a time of confusion and turmoil, but we ask that you do not fret. These are changes that were already destined to happen, and it's really a time for all of you to come together in unity, which you will accomplish that. We want you to understand that the tactic of fear is what is trying to cause more turmoil on your planet, but you must understand that you need to transmute that fear into love and compassion. Times are different. With the energies evolving, with the veil lifted as we are now in the 4D, the way to overcome and become united is by realizing your own true self and to find compassion even to those that you do not like or trust. With knowing that we have full trust that everything will be okay, for we trust in you and we believe in you and we are here to help you. All you need to do is ask and sit in silence and allow us to guide you. Do not lose hope. Do not get lost in fear. More changes are coming as expected. More things to what you would call rock your boat. This is a perfect opportunity to learn how to detach and become one within yourselves. When you understand this, the world as you see it now will no longer exist. Thank you for having us, and we wish you well.
Wow. Thank you for the message. So stay out of fear, be more compassionate, and hold on to your horses.
I pretty much.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, my peeps are pretty cut and dry, they tell you they stick straight to the point.
Well, that's good. Okay. So yeah, it's troubling times right now, but let's not buy into the fear. Stay in this in the side of love and compassion, even towards our enemies.
Yes.
Easier said than done.
It is. And that's the game of life. That's what we're here for. It's like that's what we have to learn to do um to I guess get closer to ascension.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um but
Well,
yeah.
thank you to the council for the message, and hopefully, and to know that they are with us and they are here to help us. And all we need to do is be present, calm, and to listen for guidance.
Yep. Yep. That's easier said than done, right? When you try to sit and meditate and you're like, oh, did I turn off the stove? You know?
Right. Your grocery shopping list. I got to buy this and I got to go here. And yes, it's
Oh, I
hard.
forgot to call her.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
easy.
for sure. Not easy, but it's doable. You can do
It
it.
is.
But
It is. It's just a habit that you have to create so that you until you get into that rhythm. So,
absolutely, absolutely. Practice, practice, practice.
yes.
But thank you so much, Edna, for having me. I love talking to you, and I cannot wait to see you again.
Thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully we'll hang out sometime soon.
Yes.
I'll see you.
Okay, bye.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a moment to pop back in and let you know that I am offering healing sessions, and let me show you how you can connect with me. Okay, so this is my tap link um, at Edna Energetics. You can send me an email by just clicking at the top, or you can book a session on my website by clicking on the book a session, healing session. Or I do offer some angel healing courses, and I do have a shop where I sell my cards. So if you're interested in buying a deck of affirmation cards, a deck of archangel cards, a deck of angel numerology cards, those are all available on my shop, so you're welcome to go there. My essential oil site is also available. I have workbooks for those of you who are interested in coloring. They're coloring workbooks or want to learn about the archangels. I have those available as well. And other things in there that you might be interested in. But if you are looking for a healing session for yourself or a loved one, please go ahead and either contact me, send me an email, or book a session online. Okay? All right. Thank you and have a wonderful day.